cost-benefit analysis is what people go through. It's one thing when there's a insurance company or whatever, but when there's human lives at stake, it's just totally different. How did you change from the beginning of that analysis and process that you went through to the end? Inside you.
I think that there is a sobriety that overcomes you during the course of a decision like this that's hard to describe. Look, we've had to make a lot of tough decisions this year. You know, there was moments where we thought that the financial system might be on the verge of collapse. There are decisions that you've got to make about intervening in the auto industry, which you know are going to be wildly unpopular. And so there are a series of decisions that I've made up until the decision most recently to send additional troops into Afghanistan. In each of those decisions, I could step back a little bit and say, all right, what's in a fairly calculating, analytical way, what's the best decision to make? With this one, you feel it viscerally. You lose sleep. You think about families. You think about history. You walk through Arlington. You're reminded of the image of a mother in the rain sitting in front of a tombstone. And so the gravity of the decision is just of a different quality.
In the West Point speech, you talked about reversing the Taliban's momentum. What if this surge doesn't?
Well, then we're going to have to make additional decisions based on what the situation on the ground is. Look, you know, the thing that prompted my decision was the belief that if we just sustained the status quo, in the long term, meaning, or even the medium term, over the course of 5 to 8 years, we'd probably be devoting just as many resources, as many troops, because there would never be a clear break, a clear inflection point where we could start to draw down without enormous risks that might not be in America's national interest. What we did, I think, was find that point where, having built up Afghan capacity, we're then in a position to start reducing our presence because we've built up a partner in the region that can work with us effectively. There are no guarantees that that works perfectly. In fact, I think it's safe to bet that no matter how well we do, there's still going to be problems with Afghan governance. There's still going to be problems with Afghan capacity to deal with the Taliban. Al-Qaeda is still going to be active in the region in some way. So, as I said before, my job is to make the best decisions possible given the circumstances. And the circumstances are, you've got a very unruly place in that border region between Afghanistan and Pakistan. It is going to take, I think, a long time for us to reverse the mindset that is leading young Afghans and young Pakistanis and jihadists from the region to direct their anger and frustration at the United States. But what we can do, I think, is create an environment in which those impulses are contained and that over time we're reversing this dynamic. It's going to go in fits and starts. It's not going to be a smooth line. It's not going to be a smooth trajectory. Even in Iraq, as I said, it's gone as well as I think we could have hoped, but you still see the occasional bombing there that kills civilians. You still see enormous problems in terms of just getting an election law passed. So in all these situations, what we're doing is managing a difficult situation, but putting us on a trajectory where you can see the possibilities of long-term change in the region.
The one question about which it seems the United States public is skeptical of what you're doing is the question of whether the U.S. has to defeat the Taliban in order to defeat Al-Qaeda. People don't see the Taliban necessarily as a threat to the United States.
Well, actually, I've been very clear that our job is to degrade Taliban capacity. Look, there are members of the Taliban who don't have some global jihadist view. They're just a member of a tribe.
Yep.
They're looking for a job. They see this as an opportunity. And those are the folks who I think potentially you can reintegrate into Afghan society. So it's absolutely true, and this was part of the review process, that we had to work with our military to define the mission and be clear, look, our job here is not to get a body count on the Taliban, because that, I think, takes us down a open-ended commitment that is not required for our narrow security interests. What is required is making sure that you don't have an entire nation, Afghanistan, or huge swaths of Afghanistan and Pakistan that are so lawless that it is difficult for us to keep up the pace of offensive activities against al-Qaeda. One of the unwritten stories this year is we have been very successful in going after al-Qaeda and keeping them pinned down. And I believe that that has saved American lives and lives of our allies, because they really can't operate with the kind of impunity that they did prior to 9/11. But in order to do that, we've got to make sure that we've got a platform in that region that allows us to keep that pressure on. And we can't expect to have that same kind of ability to be on the offensive against al-Qaeda if you've got Afghanistan in utter chaos, or if you've got a Taliban that is controlling huge parts of the region and are actively engaged in planning with al-Qaeda.